Picture this. You're in a heavy commercial airliner hurtling through the pitch-black darkness of the Andes Mountains. Up in the flight deck, the pilots are absolutely frantic. They're pulling the nose of the aircraft up, literally watching the terrain close in on them at a terrifying speed. They've shoved the engines to their absolute maximum limit, but the plane, it's just barely climbing. You have to wonder, how on earth did a highly experienced flight crew end up trapped in this impossible scenario with virtually no room to escape? Today's explainer takes a really close look at the tragic events of December 20th, 1995. Okay, let's dive into this. To understand how that terrifying, bone-chilling cockpit alarm was finally triggered, we actually have to rewind. We're going to look past those final, chaotic moments and examine a tragic snowball effect. It's a chain of surprisingly simple, mundane errors and psychological pressures that just compounded over the course of several hours.
So, Section 1, the flight and the crew. To start off, we really have to establish just how completely routine this evening flight from Miami to Cali, Colombia was supposed to be. I mean, there was absolutely nothing out of the ordinary about this planned trip.
And honestly, perhaps the most shocking aspect of this whole story is this number right here, 13,000. That is the number of flight hours accumulated by the pilot in command, Captain Nicholas Tafuri. He was a 57-year-old Air Force veteran, and he'd been with American Airlines for 26 years. The guy was an incredibly seasoned aviator. And, that's exactly what makes the subsequent mistakes we're going to explore so deeply relatable and just entirely human. And the rest of the cockpit was equally well equipped. First Officer Donald Williams, who was actually the pilot flying that night, also started his career in the Air Force and had 5,800 total flight hours himself. Both of these men had thousands of hours specifically on the Boeing 757 they were flying. They were heading south over the Caribbean Sea, and they were flying into a destination with pleasant weather, good visibility, and light winds. No storm, no crazy weather.
Moving on to Section 2, the pressure of delays. So, how do things go so wrong for such a highly qualified crew? Well, disaster rarely starts with a massive, catastrophic failure, right? It usually begins with quiet, creeping psychological pressure.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the timeline before the plane even left the ground. The scheduled pushback was 4:40 p.m., but because of weather delays across the country and waiting on connecting passengers, they didn't push back from the gate until 5:14. Then they got caught in that brutal evening Christmas week rush, just sitting in line with dozens of other airliners. They didn't actually take off until 6:35 p.m. They were nearly 2 hours behind schedule before they even got in the air. And that 2-hour delay wasn't just a minor annoyance. It had very real operational consequences. Aviation rules dictate strict crew rest regulations. If they got into Cali too late, the crew would be legally required to delay their next duty day. And that would just snowball into more delayed flights and angry, displaced passengers the following morning. This pressure clearly planted a seed in Captain Tafuri's mind. He wanted to make up for lost time. Which brings us to Section 3. The fatal miscommunications. This is where we enter the descent phase of the flight, where the unique valley geography of their destination, combined with a critical lack of technology, set a really dangerous stage. So Cali Airport is situated down in a long valley between two steep mountain ridges. And crucially, back in 1995, Cali did not have radar surveillance. This meant air traffic control was essentially flying blind. They relied completely on the pilots to accurately report their position over the radio using no navigational waypoints. Meanwhile, still stressing about those delays, the captain asked his first officer to keep their descent speed up to try and save a few precious minutes. And right here is where the first major link in the disaster chain snaps into place. Air traffic control cleared the flight to the Cali VOR, which is a specific radio navigation beacon. What ATC meant was you were approved to fly the standard route, hit the Tulua waypoint, then the Rosa waypoint, and finally arrive at Cali. But Captain Tafuri interpreted this as a clearance to fly direct to Cali from their current position, basically skipping the other points entirely. When the captain read his version of the clearance back over the radio, the controller completely misunderstood and just assumed they were still following the standard path. And that misunderstanding had a terrifying technological consequence. When the captain actually entered that direct-to command into the aircraft's flight computer, the system silently erased all the intermediate waypoints from the flight plan. Without ATC realizing it, the aircraft was now bypassing the required Tulua waypoint, and their programmed route was just wiped completely clean. This takes us to Section 4, the Romeo waypoint error. We are now entering the absolute critical moment of the flight, where a rapid sequence of rushed, seemingly minor choices compounds into a fatal trap. Still hyper-focused on shaving off time, the crew eagerly accepted a sudden offer from ATC to land on runway 19. It was a straight-in approach that would save them even more minutes. But because they were flying fast and high, they popped the speed brakes, those large panels on the wings, to force the heavy plane into a much steeper descent. And in their rush to adapt to this brand new runway, they skipped the standard approach briefing entirely. Realizing their flight plan was now blank, the captain jumped on the radio and asked ATC if they could just route straight to the Roseau waypoint to fix it. And this brilliantly illustrates the danger of assumptions when you're dealing with complex systems. To get the computer to target Roseau, the system's naming convention required the captain to type the letters RO. But looking down at his paper chart, Roseau was just marked with a single letter R, so he typed R into the computer and hurriedly selected the very first waypoint that popped up on the list. The problem? The first result for R wasn't Roseau, it was Romeo, a completely different waypoint located 130 miles away in Bogota. Now, the flight computer didn't know it was a mistake. It just did exactly what it was told. The heavy Boeing 757 banked into a sharp left turn, steering completely away from the safe valley approach and heading straight into the pitch-black darkness of the towering Andes Mountains. As they scrambled to figure out their navigation displays, the crew finally realized something was terribly, terribly wrong. One of the pilots uttered these chilling words, which were later captured on the cockpit voice recorder. Where are we? It is just a terrifying loss of situational awareness. These highly trained professionals had suddenly lost all confidence in their location, and meanwhile, their aircraft was descending dangerously low beneath the surrounding mountain peaks.
Let's look at Section 5, Warning and Impact. They tried to turn back to the right, toward Cali, believing they had corrected the error, but sadly, they were already out of the safe valley. Suddenly, the ground proximity warning system blared into their headsets. Caution, terrain, pull up. In a frantic fraction of a second, the crew reacted exactly as they were trained to. They shoved the engines to full maximum power. They pulled straight back on the yoke to raise the nose. The plane pitched up so aggressively that the stick shaker activated, which is this violent physical vibration warning them they were on the brink of an aerodynamic stall. But there was one fatal oversight in the chaos. They had forgotten about the speed brakes. The speed brakes they extended earlier to hurry their descent, they were still fully deployed. An amber warning light was shining right there on the instrument panel. But in the sheer terror of that moment, it went totally unnoticed. Those extended brakes created massive aerodynamic drag, basically robbing the Boeing 757 of the vital lift it desperately needed to climb. And because of this single mundane oversight, the aircraft missed clearing the mountain peak by a mere 100 feet. The aircraft struck the steep sloping terrain of El Duvio Mountain. It's a sobering, heartbreaking reminder of how quickly routine operations can completely unravel. But to truly grasp the weight of this explainer, we have to look at the vital lessons learned from the aftermath. This brings us to Section 6, the high cost of rushing. So the crucial point is this concept right here, get there-itis. The official investigation found that this specific psychological trap was the primary factor in the tragedy. It wasn't a lack of flying skill at all. It was the external pressure of a 2-hour delay that compelled them to keep their speed up, accept a hasty runway change, skip their safety briefings, and ultimately blindly trust a single keystroke in a computer. The outcome was catastrophic. To this day, the crash remains the deadliest aircraft accident in Colombia's history. Miraculously, 4 passengers survived the initial impact and the freezing night to be rescued the next morning. But it stands as a stark, tragic reminder of human vulnerability. If they had simply remembered to retract those speed brakes, investigators firmly believe the aircraft would have cleared the mountain. We so often think of disaster as the result of massive, unpredictable system failures. But if highly trained, thousands of hours logged professionals can fall victim to get their itis simply because of a holiday schedule delay, how often do external pressures and the overwhelming desire to just get it done compromise our own critical decisions? It is a heavy question to consider for sure, but an absolutely essential one for understanding the true cost of rushing.